Hi everyone, this is Sam Hunter at Hunter's Design Studio, and today's video is about how to get borders on a quilt that don't wave and ruffle and go wibbly wobbly on you. So today we're going to pretend that my Wonder Woman panel is in fact a quilt top, which I suppose it would be if this was the only thing that we were going to add to it. And we're going to pretend to add strips to the side to act as borders. Okay, so what most of us do is we grab our and we sit down at the sewing machine and we start here and we just sew, and then cut that off. And what happens when we do this is we're probably stretching this strip. So what we need to do is measure our quilt top and average out the sizes of what it looks like when we measure it here, here, and here, here, and here, and then cut our border strips to actually fit that, and then pin them on in a pretty specific way, actually. Sorry, scratchy eyes there. So rather than doing this just sew it on, chop it off, sew it on, chop it off thing, we're going to measure. So that looks like this. At this point on a large quilt, you'll probably need a proper tape measure, not just your rulers. And I'm going to pretend that my quilt top ends where the red ends on this panel. I'm not actually looking at the white part. And obviously this is a panel, it hasn't been sewn. It doesn't have lots of pieces that came together with their own little inaccuracies. So it's pretty safe to bet that this is going to be a pretty standard size all the way through. Your quilt top probably isn't, and actually most of mine aren't either. This doesn't mean that you're a bad quilter. This just means you're normal. So we measure this guy up at the top, and this is just like one tick larger than 34 inches. So I'm going to write down 34 plus. I'm going to check it out in the middle of the quilt, and I'm actually 34 minus on that one, just one tick smaller than 34. And then down here, we're going to take another look, and we are right on 34. Okay? Alrighty. And then we're going to do the same thing this way. We're going to take a look at it on this side. I've got 42. I've got 42, wow, 42 and 7/8, 41 and 7/8, and 41 and 7/8. So, and 42. So, with a calculator, you average these out. So, 34 and a little bit, 34 and a little bit less, and 34 added together, divided by 3, because we have 3 numbers. This is easy math. This is not math that we get scared of. Okay? And obviously it's going to be 34 inches. Okay? On this one we had 41 and 7/8, 41 and 7/8, 42. Okay? We know actually that this was supposed to be a 42-inch panel. So for the sake of easy, I would probably cut this one at 42 plus seam allowances. Remember this. And actually, this would be with seam allowances. If this is the edge of my quilt top, we would already have seam allowances calculated in. So again, I would average this out. And if I do that, 41.75 times 2 equals plus 42 equals divided by 3. I come up with 41.9, which is so close to 42, we may as well not argue about it. So what I would be doing at this point is I would cut this border piece at 42. And we're going to pretend that, Jesus, grabbing scissors. Okay. So we're going to do this, and we're going to pretend that I actually measured this, okay? We're just going to cut it off because this is kind of like the baking show on TV where suddenly, you know, they mix it all up and 5 minutes later it's a fully cooked Thanksgiving dinner. Okay, so What you do is you find the middle of the strip. The easiest way to find the middle of your border strip is to fold it in half and give it a pinch, pinch, pinch. And what the pinch does, probably not quite as evident on navy blue fabric, is it kind of tells us right where we're supposed to be. Right there, actually. This is a fold in the fabric. Okay? And I'm going to put a pin in my pinch just so that I don't lose track of him. And you do the same to this as you find your center. I'm going to find it with this so I don't have to take it down. Half of 42 is 21, which is about 1/8 of an inch lower than that visible fold. Okay? So this is where my middle would be. So I would pin my top. Okay, and I would pin my bottom and I would make it fit. And I would pin my two centers together and make those fit. And if you've got a really big quilt top, we do it again. We find between these two on the strip and on the quilt, and we pin that middle as well. Now remember, this is not just pinning to a wall. This would be pinning in real life to get them to go together. Okay. And then you can see, like, if I do this, okay, you can see I've got a little bit of give up in here. So what we have to do is ease this give in. Easing means fuss with it until it fits. Okay, so in this case, we make sure we don't stretch. We make sure we balance that baggy from here to here. And now there's not a whole lot of baggy here and there's not a whole lot of baggy here. And then you would pin all of this and then you would sew. So most of us, in the instance of a border, when we're trying not to do this measuring and pinning, we're probably at that point at the end of the quilt where you're so excited that you're almost there that you're just gonna and bang those borders right onto it. And then we're stretching our strips, we're not pinning adequately, we're probably, when we stretch, we're probably really tight on the top and then we're really baggy on the bottom. And when you have a baggy strip, what ends up happening here is you've got all these waves. And the only way out of the waves is actually to take really little pleats. Or you torture a long arm artist. And sometimes the pleats are so bad that a long arm artist actually can't solve it. You can get the center to lay down, but when it comes to too much wobble on the edges, there's nothing that they can do to make that work. And you actually don't want that quilt either, because it's not going to hang flat if it goes on a wall. It's going to hang with a ruffle on it if it goes on a bed. Okay? So measure 3 different places, more if it's a large quilt. Average it out. The average is how many measurements did you take? In our case, 3. We add up the 3 measurements and divide by 3, and that's the number that we're looking for. We mark our middles. And then we can mark our quarters as well, the middles of the middles. And we pin very generously. And one of the things I always say is if you pin generously, you tend not to need to rip. So if you prefer to add pins than play with a seam ripper, it usually works out a little better. Now, when you come across to do what would be your tops and bottoms now, don't forget to add in, I'm going to pin this as if we sewed it, if I can, like that. Don't forget to add in that now we have a border to work with. So we're still going with the measurements we took because that's the actual quilt top. We know what the measurement of our border is. We have to add that in, but then we also have to take out our seam allowance. So remeasure this before you cut the piece that goes along the top, okay? And again, when we're going to put it on there, use the other half of my strip, you're going to find your centers and start there, and your ends. So centers and ends, pin in the middle, and then pin all the way along here. Okay? So if you have any questions, obviously either leave them in the comments on the video or write me through the contact page at huntersdesignstudio.com and let me know how I can help you have more fun making more stuff. Have a great one. Bye-bye.